that the Union artillery is the decisive arm on this battlefield. They are the ones that make this one of the most important Union victories of the war. The 2 batteries of artillery, 12 guns in total, that were positioned not far away from where these guns are right now. In fact, just on the other side of the road on the knoll that makes up Stones River National Cemetery today. And that was Battery H of the 5th U.S. Artillery and Battery A of the 1st Michigan Light Artillery. Again, you get a chance to see the drill and experience the physical power of these cannons, even though we're only using half charges and no projectiles. But as the Confederates were making that attack, units to the south of us began to put up some pretty stiff resistance. They began to slow the speed and momentum of the Confederate onslaught, which was critical to its success, and gave General William S. Rosecrans some time to put together a new line of defense here along the Nashville Pike. The backbone of that defense would be his artillery. 2 batteries. A battery in the Union Army is 6 guns. And those 2 batteries were Lieutenant Francis Gunther's 5th U.S. Artillery and the Battery A of the 1st Michigan Light Artillery. And as they came into position up there, they essentially formed almost what you would call a 12-gun super battery. And seeing as the regulars were there, Captain Loomis, who was commanding the Michigan boys, sort of deferred to Lieutenant Gunther, so he essentially found himself in control of a really big amount of firepower. I mean, 3 guns here was fairly impressive, wasn't it? Imagine that times 4, double the powder charge, and something bad coming out of the end of it every time. Through the afternoon of December 31st, 1862, wave after wave of Confederate forces, first starting rather small, only a couple thousand men, but building by the thousands, moving forward, begin attacking this line and pushing the Union infantry back and getting closer and closer to that road. But each time, they would be beaten back by the Union artillery. Eventually, those lines would start getting close enough for Lieutenant Gunther to call for the deadliest round of artillery, canister, the big tin can filled with 1-inch iron balls packed in sawdust. And in fact, he saw the threat so bad that he decided instead of just one of those, he would have one put in, rip the powder bag off another, and throw another can on top, double canister or double-shotted canister. Up rides the commander of 1/3 of the Union Army, Major General Thomas Crittenden, and he will start yelling at Gunther, saying, "For God's sakes, can't you see them come? Fire." At which point Fitzpatrick says that Gunther kindly turned and said to the general, "I see them, sir. They are not near enough." He knew that with double canister, his range was only about 150 to 200 yards. If he fired any time sooner than that, he would not be able to do the damage that he intended. And when he finally does give the command to fire, then Alfred Pirtle, standing over on the other side near the Battery A, the 1st Michigan Light Artillery, will pick up the narrative. And he wrote, "By no order that I heard, the whole of the guns in the 2 batteries fired together, covering their front in a cloud of smoke. And then, as fast as they could load, they fired into the cloud. I never saw guns served as fast as those were now. Before the recoil was expended, the gunners grasped the spokes and threw the pieces back into position. Like lightning, the sponge was run in, turned, and withdrawn. The loads sent home, and the piece fired." We could get sight now and then of their waving arms and guns. Well, every few seconds a bullet would hiss near us, or we would see some man fall, or perhaps a horse rear, plunge, and drop. The charge kept coming, coming like the sea, ever nearer at each succeeding wave. But men were not born who could longer face that storm of canister. Despite the bravery of the Confederates making attack after attack after attack, trying to break this battle wide open and reach the promised land of the Nashville Pike, because of their own lack of artillery support being able to come through the trees, and because of Gunther's and Loomis's guns and dozens of others up and down this line, they are unable to break the lines. And now, by the end of the day of the 31st, the Battle of Stones River is irrevocably turning in the Union Army's favor. It will go through 2 more days of fighting with a terrible climax, once again with artillery at the fore, where 57 guns will kill or wound 1,800 Confederates in the final assault of the battle on January 2nd, 1863, in less than an hour. But really, if you're looking for the turning point, it was right here, almost exactly where we have these guns right now, up on that knoll where the National Cemetery is today, where those 12 guns of Battery H 5th U.S. Artillery and Battery A of the 1st Michigan stood off wave after wave of attack and literally turned the tide of this battle.
This has been a History Break, brought to you by City TV and the Stones River National Battlefield.